But if I really look at everything that I can see in my purview, it all started as an idea in somebody's imagination. Everyone who's listening to this, everything that they've ever seen and everything that they're ever going to see started as an idea in someone's imagination. And I would also further guarantee that the person that came up with the idea wasn't the person that made it real. It all started as an idea in someone's imagination. Why not yours? And then to make it real and recur required the art of collaboration. So one person had the idea and they shared that vision of a future better state of reality, whether it be a tool, a technology, a process, but they all had to give that idea away to someone else who had the capabilities, and they began to get into collaboration with each other, that my idea plus your capabilities equaled this new change to our process, or this new website or landing page. So, Mr. Idea Man, you've arrived. And everybody else listening to this has arrived as well. I'll tell you, I spend a decent amount of time in a sauna, which gives me a lot of time to think. And I do have a couple ideas starting typically around 3:30 in the morning. And one thing about an idea, we don't create ideas, we receive them. The only way that I've been able to receive the best ideas is to be quiet and to be still. One thing that you mentioned earlier, and it makes me, when you apply technology, is very similar to when you apply money. You're just really magnifying and sometimes multiplying the good or the bad of the individual. So very similar to technology is just like money to me. Technology can be an enabler. Cash can be too. In my world of VCR, cash is nothing more than a capability. Like if I'm starting a business or we're starting a project and we had to go get the funding and budget approval, that's just cash. But I'm going to do what with that cash? What can you do with money? The only thing you can do with money is by someone else's vision, someone else's capability, and someone else's reach. But when you do that, you're definitely empowering them to be the best that they can be, or show up that they're not as good as they thought they may have been. But the technology to me is just an enabler, just like cash.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
It all comes down to us, where it all started.
That's right. Isn't that funny? Yeah. Some things stay the same, right?
It's interesting in the work that I now do every day, it's become very clearly obvious in my world is collaborations and how can someone reach their business objective. And here I'm speaking specifically about entrepreneurs, but it goes well inside the organization because we all have objectives. And so oftentimes they're looking outside to create. Here, in your example, they're looking for this technology to come and be the savior. When we first have to start inside, whether it's starting inside with the general manager or the area manager or the person over this team, is very similar to in my world is always with an entrepreneur. And the very first place that we start is to identify who they are. And we call it entrepreneur positioning system, kind of like GPS.
Mm-hmm.
In essence, if they have objectives, how in the heck would we ever know where to go when we left home if we didn't know where home was? So starting first with what makes that individual unique. And in my world, we give it a name, unique value contribution. So helping them identify what makes them unique. And then after that, we know exactly what they have. And this will be kind of a shocker, to give, not to get. These objectives that we have is to go do something and to accomplish something so that we get. And in my world of the collab, and it's been this way since I was very young, it's all in what I had to give. And when I gave it, what happens? Well, an outcome of some sort could be good, it could be negative. In many instances, I'm very fortunate it's been positive. And so the very next question, once I determined that me giving what I've been given to, let's say, Mr. Brendon, is how we're going to split the outcome. I expect this is going to have an outcome. When it does, how are we going to split the outcome? So taking that approach is a little bit different than the convention that we see, certainly in business today. And I would say that it runs throughout inside organizations as well.
Yeah.
Not just at the entrepreneur level.
Yeah. So you're suggesting that is what you're seeing succeed currently in all the collaborative work that you're doing through SeedSpark is that the successful entrepreneurial businesses that you're working with are using that same framework with their key people, and what we in strategic coach we call their key who's. They're using that same mindset as if they would be with collaborating with another entrepreneur.
Bingo. Yes. When you begin to look at the world through the eyes of collaboration and what it is that you have to give, not what you're looking to get, it changes the entire game. It is truly a mindset shift, and it takes a while, even with very high performing entrepreneurs. They understand it, at least as verbally given to them. It's a way different practice to live it. So it is a journey. So oftentimes it's very easy, especially when things are going great, they fall back into not leveraging the art of collaboration. They fall back into the current conventions. And I would argue many of those strategies are solely based upon competition, where collaboration is not. It's the awareness that we've all been given unique and special gifts. And if we approach the world as to how can we give it to someone or someone's else, and what happens is there's going to be an outcome. And how can we split that outcome? That's way different than today. I'd love for you to come and help me, and you're going to give me a proposal. That's very conventional, right? At the end of page 3, it's going to be a lot of bullet points and somewhere for me to sign and some monetary associated value to creating this outcome. But I would argue in my world that I definitely operate just a little bit differently in that I understand that's a point in time, and that's an amount of money that I'm trading for, hopefully an outcome that we are both aligned with.
Mhm.
But the reality is, the second that the ink dries, or even before, everything changes. Whether it be market, the team, somebody left or somebody joined, product or vendor, supplier cannot get it here in time, or it showed up early. The market, whether it be interest rates, if we're tied to those, are up or down, there is going to be change. So it puts each party, in my world, at a little bit of a disadvantage. Though it is, yes, it is the convention today, because we know things are going to change. And in my world, I want everyone to win at the beginning, the middle, and the end. So that's one reason I've really constructed all of these mechanisms of engagement, all centered around the art of collaboration, where everybody wins in the outcome.
Yeah, and you're so to reiterate my earlier question. So you're doing that at every level, whether it's business to business or entrepreneur to team member.
Yes. First, starting with what makes that team member unique, independent than the title, independent than where they graduated, what roles they've held at other locations, because the locations were different and their interpretation of the role, albeit being the same name that we probably have in our organization, I guarantee it's different.
Mhm.
Let's first start at the very beginning, which is what makes this person unique, both their experiences. And this is big for me. I've been dealing with so many wonderful people. I began to ask questions on when did they become aware of the way they were uniquely designed to create value in the world? And it's between 7 and 9 years old, very, very, very consistently. And I've coined what I call your constant question. I'm very interested in what everyone in any team of organizations that I own, what is their constant question? What did they receive between 7 and 9 years old that they began to apply that question to every environment that they've ever been in? And they've been asking that same question for a very long time, and they've gotten really, really good at it. But that's one reason I believe that we all truly do see things differently, and we all have something to contribute. Because I don't have the dimensional vision awareness that you do. If we woke up in the same house, ate the same thing for breakfast, rode in the same car to work, sat in the same meetings, was on the same podcast, at the end of the day, if we were to recount, your recount would be wildly different than mine. And that's a wonderful thing. So we would give proper consideration for that, both on our teams and, of course, our managers or those teams that work for us, and really dig deeper to understand what's our constant question? What can I count on that person for? Of looking at any and all situations from something that they possess. And yes, their experiences and their pedigrees, their education, and where they went to school will all contribute to only enhancing that constant question, and ultimately their unique value contribution.
Hmm. Yeah, very cool. So, Chad Jenkins, uh, when I think about you, in fact, I was making a note. There were two words that came to mind, and obviously, as a best-selling author, it's maybe you've helped me figure this out from your books. Just add zero and friction fuel. But the two words that I think about when I think about you are collaboration and friction,
Yes.
right? And if I had to turn that into a sort of an equation, it would
Hmm.
be collaboration plus friction equals acceleration and growth.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. Yeah.
So I think a lot of people listening would say, "Oh, collaboration makes a lot of sense," and I talk about collaboration and teamwork and those kinds of things a lot, but I've never been as comfortable talking about friction. And I think a lot of people listening will go, "Oh, friction. That's not good." And in our HubSpot ecosystem, the founders of HubSpot probably 10 years ago started. We're talking about the flywheel effect of a business. And they were
Yes.
talking about it from a sales, marketing, customer service perspective. Is how do you remove friction for the most part, but they also talked about where do you add friction into the flywheel, because sometimes that you need to slow things down to make sure that the value exchange is going to be correct. Explain to us a bit about where does your relationship with friction start, and
Hmm.
why has it become such a gift to you?
No, yeah, definitely. One, I think it's a wonderful question, and thank you for those kind words as well. So friction for me started quite a long time ago. I started in business so young that there's no way I could ever work in an industry for 10 years and then come up with a better mousetrap and decide to leave and do it on my own. I just started from the end. And so I really wanted to unpack where the ability to see how to create unique value in all these different industries came from. In the first book, I definitely gave insights into a methodology that I've used starting back at 8 years old, which is friction identification, leverage the market, and it stands for, that's the explanation of remove the film. So I presume all of us have gotten a new iPhone or new Android or a new TV or potentially even a new car, and it looked vibrant until you peeled the film off of it. You're like, wow, that screen is nice. Oh, that TV is better than the one I have at home. And look at that navigation screen now. It's a lot more clear. So when I look at industries, that's the way that I first look at them. When I look at projects, when I look at existing processes, that's what I'm keyed in on is where's the friction? And when I identify friction, a couple other questions. I mentioned the leverage the market part. The leverage the market now is evolved. The original leverage the market is okay, great. I've got an idea to create value for an industry I've no business being in because I've never been in that industry. But the leveraging the market was if I create this unique value, if I start a company doing this, how many people can it serve? And so I was gauging depth of market is exactly what I was doing. The new me, you mentioned collaborations earlier, is when I gauge the leveraging of the market, like how many folks can I serve? The second portion of leverage the market kicks into high gear, which is who already possesses the skills, the wisdom, maybe the reach, like who already has everyone's credit card number on file that I can collaborate with. And instead of me going to those 10,000 people and then having to go from not knowing me to knowing me, then liking me, and then trusting me, I could use collaboration and they could know me, like me, trust me in a matter of days now. So it's definitely evolved, but it all started with identifying friction existing in industries or projects or even companies I own. This continues every day. Inside of Friction Fuel, you mentioned another book. I outlined the friction operating system, which is empowering everyone in all of our teams, including our clients and also those vendors and suppliers. Just submit the easiest way in all ways. There's not a wrong one because the next one, the way that you come up with of how to capture friction is the right one if anybody uses it. So exhaust all measures to leverage the ability to catch friction when it's happening from any and all team members. Because again, as we talked about a little bit earlier, they all see it from a different perspective. They have a different dimensional vision than you and I do. And when we empower them to submit the frictions, we begin to see them in commonality. You can begin to obviously identify trend lines, and that can help you with your value creation. Yeah, but it started a very long time ago.
So I guess if you were to write rewrite the equation that I created for you, would you say that you would put friction first and then collaboration if you wanted to be really technical?
Yeah, so if you want to get like super technical, I deal with emergence. And so the emergent is the what happens when two or more people, places, and things are combined and it creates an emergent. A friction is the result of an emergent. So what collaboration, starting way down deep, is causing the friction that helps you, puts you in the catbird seat actually, of identifying how you could bring more value by either removing that friction completely or modifying what's causing it to be created in the first place.
Uh-huh.
Well, how the heck are you going to do it? Because I don't have very many skills. I have a lot of vision and I'm wired up with a lot of curiosity, but I don't have that many skills, to be honest with you. So for me, it's really easy for me to understand how something is happening and identify the components, people, places, and things that are causing that friction.
Uh-huh.
But then when it's time to resolve it, although I come up with the idea, I'm going to leverage collaboration to create the value and ultimately remove or embrace that friction.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So it's more of a flywheel for me.
sure. So it is a
Yeah,
flywheel. Yeah, yeah.
it is for me. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, and then another thing that you and I have talked about in the past that I wanted to sort of dig in a little bit more is, I think a lot of the sort of the chaos and uncertainty right now that exists in a lot of businesses, which people I think are blaming on, again, just the breakneck speed of the sort of acceleration in technology driven by AI, is it's again, it's another push from how things worked, as we talked about, in the 1900s, which is now just over 25 years ago.
It's hard to
Um,
believe.
yeah, and what is different, going forward. So again, a lot of people listening will have been impacted somehow or influenced by what they learned or what their teachers learned or what their parents learned or what their grandparents learned, which all happened in the 1900s or pre
Yes.
1900s. But some of that stuff, again, some of that stuff will stay the same, but a lot of that stuff has to change. How do you think, like right now we're sort of we all, I think, realize we're at this pivotal moment. How do you think about thinking differently? In other words, what is the mindset that you advise people to take now moving forward, and sort of, in some ways letting go of the things in the past that are holding them back?
Yes. I think it's a wonderful question, and it's one I've given a lot of thought to. So the approach that I take is, and you mentioned it earlier in the context, is what's not going to change, what is always going to be the same. I think it's more empowering and it's also more fruitful because we can't control whatsoever the ideas that someone else has, the friction that they've identified, and them leveraging the market to create a new and better way. Can't control that. What we can control is the way we are uniquely designed to create value in the world. And what we can control is identifying the things that will never change. So I find it a lot more beneficial to start there. And a couple of things have become very apparent to me. Value creation, it's not going anywhere. When you talk about, and you mentioned pre 1900s, you could continue going way far back. And I haven't been able to go back far enough that I've been able to dispel the myth that value creation is what it's all about. So that being a consistent constant, I mentioned earlier in our conversation today that the interpretation that value is created when a task is completed is very 1900 and even before. And I think we've moved beyond that. It's taken a little bit of time for the rest of the world to capture the memo, but I think we've moved well beyond it. And so in my world, we've coined a term that we've moved into the idea economy, that no longer is value created and interpret that value is created when a task has been completed, is the way that humans are going to be rewarded for their unique value contribution. And the good thing is we were all factory installed with what we needed to thrive in the idea economy. I would say everyone listening on this call, no matter what position in the organization you hold, you woke up this morning with some ideas and you have them unlimited. And that is a wonderful thing. Not capturing them and ultimately not taking action by sharing them. You may be keeping yourself from reaching your absolute full potential because your ideas are different than my ideas and they're different from the listeners of this show's ideas. We don't have the same context, and that in itself is empowering. So, if I had some polite suggestions that someone might consider, is to breathe. You have what you need. We definitely moved into the idea economy, and the rudimentary things that you're so worried about AI is going to come and take from you. Before I would dare say a lot of us were complaining about those things, and we don't really want to do them anymore. That we'd love to be paid for what happens between our ears and not what's holding us up, our back. But a lot of folks are still trading time for money that particular way. And as we move into proliferation of AI, yes, there's going to be a lot that's going to change. We don't have any control over it. The genie has left the bottle. What we do have control over is the way that we react. And I'd first start with identifying things that are not going to change and identifying as well that I have all that I need to succeed. But how can I begin to capture those ideas that I have that come to me on a daily basis at a minimum, maybe a minute basis for some of us? How do you capture them and then begin to share them with the other people on your team or in your organization that can really embrace them and begin to really leverage that friction, which is where it all started, into something that gives us competitive advantage? And it can come from anywhere in the organization. You mentioned strategic coach earlier. Dan had written a book in 1994 called The Great Crossover. Are you familiar with this?
I'm not, no.
It's not printed any longer. I have a book report on it I'd be happy to share, and I probably have a copy somewhere I'd be happy to send you. But even at that time, which of course is 1994, like we might remember, it was the beginning of that hideous sound when you hit dial up for your internet. So that's where, again, that kind of started, at least for mainstream. And there was a lot of concerning questions. At that time, he shares in that book that there were 37 layers in GM from the top to the bottom. Have you ever told somebody one thing and then let them tell it to 36 other people and it been remotely close to what you said? I don't think it takes that long from blue to turn into pink. So there was a horrible way, but yet that was the way that you built companies back then. And I think that also has changed, that everyone listening to this podcast has the exact same opportunity to change the way the business or the project they're on continues to evolve. If they would begin to share those ideas that they have insight that no one else does. A lot of times they feel not empowered to do so, but I would encourage them to really focus on the ideas that they have from a standpoint of value creation with some awareness of what's not going to change and stop holding it all in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That would be a big deal.
Yeah, no, that's I like that. So, just coming back to your idea economy
Yes.
concept, because I do agree with you, but I think this is part of, I think, the struggle, especially for people like myself who are idea people. And for over 50 years I've been told, okay, yeah, we don't need any more ideas, what we need is action, and get the task done, right? And you're essentially saying that value creation in the last century and before that was task based. In other
You go
words,
do the task.
yeah,
Yes,
go
sir.
do the task. When you do the task,
Yeah.
you'll be paid for the task or
Yep.
whatever. Whereas, so there's this very deep, sort of cultural in across many cultures. I've lived on multiple continents and multiple countries, and this doesn't change wherever you go, because all these places I've lived were essentially created and were running on the Industrial Revolution, and which again is all task based. It's a
Yes,
task
sir.
based
That
economy.
is the
So
framework. Yeah.
yeah, so people who were more visionary idea type people, we've been told pretty much all our lives that we need to stop coming up with more ideas and start like just doing stuff. How do you again? So how do you help folks who are more idea focused to become more action focused? I believe that AI is going to be a huge release for people like that who where before I could pretty much not do anything without anyone else because I'm not driven to action in the same way that many other people are.
Yes.
Whereas now I think with AI, I can suddenly start fulfilling tasks just because I'm able to collaborate with AI. But anyway, but this is not about me. This is
Yeah.
about other people who might be in the same predicament.
Well, I think it's about us all, and I think it's much, in my context, anything that you hear me talk about is going to be centered a lot of times, not a lot of times, the lion's share of times around entrepreneurs. But I think the work that we do is way more human. And so, if you at this moment, no matter where you are, if you look at the things that you can see directly in your purview, and currently today I always have a microphone in front of me. There's a camera on a pedestal in front of me. There's an 80-inch TV behind it, a couple lights that make me feel like I'm on Fox News. Like, but if I really look at everything that I can see in my purview, it all started as an idea in somebody's imagination. And I dare say I would put a lot of money on it. Everyone who's listening to this, everyone that everything that they see right now, and everything that they've ever seen, and everything that they're ever going to see started as an idea in someone's imagination. And I would also further guarantee that the person that came up with the idea wasn't the person that made it real, nor were they the persons that made it recur. So made it into a business, made it into a thing. You can go now and buy it at the grocery store, buy it in the hardware store. Like all of those things, if you track them backwards, it all started as an idea in someone's imagination. Why not yours? And then to make it real and recur, required the art of collaboration. So one person had the idea and they shared that vision of a future better state of reality, whether it be a tool, a technology, a process, an improvement to a process, but they all had to give that idea away to someone else who had the capabilities, one or more people, and they began to get into collaboration with each other. That my idea plus your capabilities equaled this new change to our process, or this new website or landing page, or an email template that we now use, and it gets so much response or engagement, or causes so much conversion. It all started as an idea in someone's imagination, and it didn't come to fruition without leveraging the art of collaboration.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, Mr. Idea Man, you've arrived.
Right.
And
Yeah.
everybody else listening to this has arrived as well. Yeah,
Right.
I'm this exact same way, but I'll tell you, I spend a decent amount of time in a sauna, which gives me a lot of time to think. And I do have a couple ideas starting typically around 3:30 in the morning. And one thing about an idea, we don't create ideas, we receive them. The only way that I've been able to receive the best ideas is to be quiet and to be still and definitely very present. So for me, it starts very early in the morning. But I'll tell you the evolution of many ideas today after a workout and when I'm in the sauna, I have access to my phone, which will overheat at about 22 minutes, by the way, but it seems to hang in there pretty well these days. I haven't one croak out yet. I'm able to take that idea and leverage something like GenSpark.ai. I assume most you're using it today. And not only will it converse back and forward with me, which I do on my way to the gym with Collabra, which is what I call ChatGPT's enhanced voice. About a year and a half ago, I gave it a name, and that is a weird name called Collabra, quite fitting, of course, for what I do. And Collabra knows a lot about me, but GenSpark empowers me to make it real, like a scope document for a new app that I have. I'm sitting in the sauna just back and forth, and before I get into the steam room or go to take a cold shower, I have a document that I can send to. I own a software development company as well. I can send it to those guys, and they have not very many questions for me. Like, that's
Hmm.
a capability that I didn't have before. I'm the same. I mentioned earlier, what's not going to change? I'm going to wake up between 3 and 3:30. I'm going to wake up with a lot of ideas, and I want to share them with someone to try to make them real and recur. Therefore, I have to leverage the art of collaboration. And I would dare say there's no change, no difference between me and everyone else who's listening to this or the other person I'm seeing. So it's
Yeah.
actually going to give us the ability to be more authentically human.
Yeah. Really, really good. Um, so Chad, let's so bring it back to sort of some of the things that people are dealing with that, the, I guess, folks listening, um, and sort of bringing it back to the sort of the thesis of this show, which is why do some companies scale, uh, when they seemingly have access to the same talent pool, they have access to the same funding, they have access to the same technology. Why do some teams scale better than others?
Mhm. Another very great question, very deep question. To me, it's all about motion, and motion is directly contributed to amount of vision clarity. So you mentioned these ideas earlier that we all have. When you have vision clarity, true vision clarity, you know exactly who I need to share this with to get it in motion. And I think organizations that scale, they have a ton of vision clarity around the way they uniquely create value.
Hmm. Hmm.
When everyone and any of the organizations that I own, and that's quite a few, they are unique and different, and that yet they are the same. When there's when I do meet with them, and I can tell that they have complete vision clarity throughout the organization, independent of the technology that they're using, the pricing, they're crushing it.
Uh-huh.
It could be one of the most competitive markets, but when you get all of those people with clarity of vision and how they come together to create unique value, y- technology can absolutely be an enabler to let them do even more at a much faster pace. But the motion that they are putting toward creating that value far exceeds what any of the competitors are doing. And it's just you have everyone in alignment. So definitely starting with who we are collectively and individually, and making sure we have vision clarity around the way we came together to create new and unique value. And recently, I noticed my folks put a post out on LinkedIn that talked about, and you will also hear me say this a lot of times. The sign on the door is the same as the guy down the street. Your invoices look the same as well, but that's not true at all. You're giving away your secret sauce. And if we were to, as a collective group, get alignment with the way we uniquely deliver value to those that we serve and give that a name and let the rest of the world who are they look alike to the people that we're serving, let them know that they can buy that from us. Boy, that solves a lot of problems. There's many organizations spending a ton of money making their landing pages or them look like the guy down the street because that's what they're doing today, and they're kind of missing the point.
Yeah.
It's getting back to the way that we create value and then leveraging collaboration. That's going to be the needle mover for the ones that scale and the ones that don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good. In your past experience in all the organizations that you've built and been involved in growing and scaling, how do you ensure that data and technology are assets and not liabilities? So
Hmm.
we see this all the time, and there's all types of names for this, because as technology has been evolving at an exponential rate. A lot of companies end up with what we call tech debt, or in this case, tech liabilities. And the same thing happens with data, where if you have a lot of data but you haven't been able to organize it, that doesn't necessarily, it can quickly move from being an asset. And with AI now coming into play, you know, data sort of accuracy and readiness is becoming, even more important. But anyway, so just in your experience, like how do you ensure that data and technology remain assets and not and don't become liabilities?
Hmm. It's a series of things that we do in because of the organizations that I own are pretty different. Cybersecurity and general construction or HVAC and software, so that they're pretty wide. Um, the way that they create value, of course, to your point, is very today's time is stacked upon layers of technology that they're utilizing along the way that they process their ultimate way that they create the value. And sometimes we will take a piece or part away. A lot of times it's in a leadership meeting because we're inspecting all the different ways that we have to, all the different types and things that we do to create the value and the systems and software that we rely upon them. And we just ask questions, if that were not here, how would we do it? And then sometimes it's manual. We would have to go back to manual, and boy, it would slow the process down a whole lot. And then sometimes it's like a light bulb goes off in two or three people's head. It's like, good gracious, we don't have to do it that way. We don't even need to do it that way anymore. But we're not taking the time, many organizations I see are not taking the time to reflect on getting back to the things that will never change. We talked about it a couple of times here, and focusing on how are we leveraging the tools and resources, and including the talent that we have on our teams to create that outcome. And if they were not here, how would we do it? It's a wonderful little, it's a very simple exercise to start, but it's a wonderful exercise in what it really uncovers as the opportunities that we have to remove, you mentioned technical debt. There's a lot of that out there, or components that are now really becoming a liability. Because an example, if it is that we could accomplish the value creation without that piece of technology or that entire process, then we're being horribly inefficient and we're the one that caused it.
Mhm.
So part of our process in any organization is to say, hey, what can we remove and stop doing pieces and parts of the process that don't create value anymore? They don't help us. They're not driving efficiency. If anything, they're taking it away.
Yeah, and we've actually we've heard that multiple times from leaders on the show. Where I've asked a similar question, and they all say that they've all said a version of the same thing, which is if you aren't able to map it out manually, then don't expect any technology to make your
No,
processes move
there is
any
no silver
more
bullets. Yeah.
efficiently. Yeah,
Even AI,
yeah,
it's not a silver bullet at all. It's an enabler. It's an enabler. Yeah. If we it, no, and then there's been studies now that, and you're starting to see them, of course, because it's fear, but it's, if you go to Chat GPT and ask for something that gives you a series of bullet points on how to complete a task, that places of your brain are not lighting up. Okay, what's the question that I'm now asking to leverage this supercomputer that I have versus this Chat GPT that is very impactful, but it's not a human. It doesn't think at the same rate that we do. It has access to a lot of information. It can do the same task many times over, but it can't account for all the nuances that you and I can in the first 10 minutes that we wake up, in the first 1 minute that we wake up in the morning.
yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah,
how do
yeah.
we leverage the things that are most vital to us and remove those things that just don't make sense anymore?
So then, Chad, I guess another question would be like, what drives your decision to implement new technology? In other words, like, what is typically happening when you and or your team or one of your teams says, okay, yeah, it's time to implement new technology? What drives your decision?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that I believe, and this is driving a lot of our investments these days, driving all our investments these days, is how can we get back to being more authentically human, to leveraging what makes us unique and different, which is, and good gracious, is this a cliche? It's our people. As it turns out, it actually is. But we have, because of societal norms, focused so much on task completion, we've gotten away from the secret sauce that everybody shows up with in the morning, but we're not using it to make the outcome. We're just doing tasks. So whenever we look at investing in technology today, because boy, with the level of curiosity I have, I explore some tools. Right? Yeah, that's true. I might send some text message very early in the morning to some very key people about something I've run across or something someone shared with me that can make a big difference. And it's all predicated now on, if we implement this, the time savings that it's going to cost from us. What are we going to do with it? And we use it, we call it my AI time inside of our organizations. We're going to use this 2 hours a week that it is going to create for us by implementing this technology to give this team time to just be with each other. to identify those frictions of how we can create more value tomorrow than we did yesterday by not doing the same rudimentary task. So that drives so much of the way that we're interpreting what technologies are going to make the biggest impact for us. Is actually what's going to allow us to get back to being what we authentically are. There's not currently a piece of software that I can find and or invest in that can do what my team can do, who have been dealing with in our cybersecurity company, which has evolved from an MSP, managed service provider. They've been dealing with some of the same clients for the last 20 years. Like to understand all those nuances and all those personalities and the good and the bad along the way, I have not found anything to recreate that yet. So to empower them to look at that relationship and look at how that we could create more value from the frictions they've been identifying for a long time, but we didn't have the time to do anything about them. Now we do. So that's the way that we use our investment strategy around investing in new things that are going to really help us.
And then as far as, so when you are investing in new technology that then frees up time for your various teams, whether it's 2 hours a week or 4 hours a week, whatever it is, what systems and processes help drive adoption for you, if any? um, and how long does it typically take for your teams to adopt,
To
you
begin
know,
embracing.
yeah, exactly, to
Yeah.
adopt the technology, but also the processes that are then impacted by the new technology.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It
So,
takes a little bit. Yeah, I think it's another great question. I think for us, it all starts with, as a team, identifying those components that are gonna make us more efficient, that give us more time to talk with each other. Assume and that we're not different than any other organization. Today, a lot of us different teams are remote, so we don't have that human connection in the traditional sense that we did previously, prior to COVID. So getting them involved, I mentioned the friction operating system earlier on the call. Implementing that has been a huge catalyst for us, and luckily we've been running it for years and years. But giving them a voice just to submit it, anything that they see, and now AI has been very helpful because previously we would try to spot trends. As humans, we're not that great at it, to be honest with you. AI has been hugely helpful. So that showing up, EOS, I think a lot of folks probably listening use Entrepreneurial Operating System. Many organizations I own do use it. So it really helps us with identifying our top IDS items
mhm.
because they're from the voice of all the team members and from our vendors and suppliers and also our clients. So capturing them in central repository, enabling us to look at prioritization, what's the commonality of things that are happening, letting the team get involved with their ideas. We talked about those earlier. They're not a bad thing. They're actually a wonderful thing. And I mentioned the GM analogy with 37 layers top to bottom. It's not that way anymore. It's a network. We're all connected to each other, and we have the capability to affect change. Got to give them a voice. Friction operating system does that. Bring it to IDS, top 10. We explore solutions ourselves. So there's not a chain of command that they have to go through that actually will get you in trouble. We want all of these supercomputers that are walking around or sitting in their homes working, also like antennas, looking out for the next best thing that could help us create more value in less time. When that happens, we make the decision ourselves. We try our very best to understand how the impact is going to be to our legacy processes and get in front of it. Because when we establish my AI, everybody gets to participate in the time that they were to create and save us. I just want access to their brains. I want access to all the supercomputers, not just doing tasks. So taking that approach, the my AI is absolutely a catalyst for them to embrace that new process change
Mhm.
because they know what it means to them.
Yeah.
They're going to have 2 hours to really think about and get out all those ideas and make them become real and recur and make a big difference in the way we're creating value.
Yeah. Chad, I'm gonna to wrap up here. I'm gonna leave you with one question, which is, for the listeners, what one piece of advice would you give right now to folks who are trying to figure out how to change the way that they're doing things to move into the idea economy?
Yeah, I love it. So the one piece of advice I would share is first you came factory installed with what you need to thrive. You mentioned that it is your imagination, your ability to dream, your ability to receive these ideas are a lion's share of the way you create value, and certainly the way you're going to create value as you move into the idea economy. Don't hold it inside. If you go back to the scenario that I said and what I feel like is fundamentals, that everything that we see, have seen, and will see all started as an idea in somebody's imagination. I would argue, why can't it be yours? And I know why it can't be yours. It's that if you don't leverage the art of collaboration, whether intentionally or reactively, nothing becomes real, and definitely nothing starts to recur. So leverage your imagination, get time to think, try to spot those frictions. We didn't talk about it as in depthly, but when I think about frictions, there's 3 different types that I outline in Friction Fuel, the book. And that is, the first type is very clearly aware because you have to respond to this friction. Let's say you were to get a cut right now and you begin to bleed out. That's a friction. You must go get it taken care of or you're going to die. There's many frictions like that, whether it's your cash flow, you're running out of money, your accounts receivable, somebody's not shipping an order. This is the 6th time that they've done it. These are all frictions, and they're frictions that typically result in a complaint. But there's one key friction that we didn't talk about, I feel like is the best. It's just like you pull up to a gas tank or gas station rather. You have regular, mid-grade, which are the complaints, regular, the ones that you're absolutely responding to today. You're out of money, you got to do something. That's a friction. We're all very aware of those. Or even the complaints, we receive them as such. Really, they're nuggets of gold because when you embrace them, you begin to increase the amount of value that you create for the person that complained, and they continue to pay you money.
Mhm.
Seems like why we're here. And
Yeah.
then the last one being premium, just like you pull up to a gas tank. Those are the frictions that no one is having a direct behavioral response to right now, but you can sense it. And if we were to embrace it and create value from it, this awareness that we have, it would absolutely be a competitive advantage. Those are the ideas that we want to share going forward. They're the ideas that you have. You may not be tracking them through the process that I just shared with you, but that little filtering mechanism, just like a gas pump, is it a regular friction? We have to do something about it, maybe even today. Is it a mid-grade friction? I think they call it plus in some states. These are complaints. If we do react to this, one, we might not lose a client. Two, we might improve the way that we do a process, and we might leverage that to gain clients. Or the real sexy frictions, the premium, those are the ones no one's screaming about. There's no behavioral response, but you know from your purview, from your dimensional vision awareness, that if you were to really embrace that, the ideas that come to you could either create a new competitive advantage for your organization or potentially for your industry and evolve you beyond all the rest of the competition. So these are the ideas that I have to thrive in the idea economy. And the one thing that's wonderful is we all came factory installed with an imagination. So good luck. You're a winner.
That's awesome. Chad, thanks so much for joining us. It's been really good having you on the show, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon and learning more from you.
Absolutely, Brendon. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely.